What up, what up? Welcome to the Focus on Words podcast. This is your host, Django Degree. As I always say, the limits of my language are the limits of my universe. And the whole point of this podcast is to take popular culture and put it in a way that maybe we could just, see something new. I feel like we've taken life so serious that we forget that, we really learn through play, every aspect, even the stuff we hate. And that's what today's post is about. The quarter zip ritual, play, power, and the canary in the coal mine. I think many people have overlooked the truth about the quarter zip and also about Western culture. And so that's what I hope to get across to you guys today. I hope when you finish this, you can actually see that hip hop is really just an expression of Western culture that we're typically not willing to talk about. Now, you see, there's a joke circulating through the digital ether, a visual shorthand that has captured the collective imagination, the quarter zip. You've seen the videos, young black men often labeled as YNs, donning the preppy, mock neck aesthetic of a venture capitalist or a suburban dad heading to a golf outing. I can't wait until they find Allbirds. They are pairing these sweaters with the same swagger, the same jewelry, and the same intensity they would a tech fleece, a Nike tech or a designer hoodie. But on the surface, while it is a meme, a hilarious subversion of white collar attire, it's actually turning into the new uniform of the streets. But as Plato famously observed in the Republic, no study pursued under compulsion remains rooted in the memory. And he advocated for children to learn through play. Force, he argued, never sticks. Play is the laboratory of the soul. It is where we test the boundaries of identity, power, and reality without the immediate threat of permanent consequence. If the quarter zip is a costume in a game of cultural cosplay, we have to ask, what is the game being played? There's truth in jest, and this trend is far more than a joke. It is a profound, albeit subconscious, commentary on the quiet part of Western culture. The struggles, contradictions, and perceived pathologies of Black America have always been the canary in the coal mine for the truth of the American dream. By the time the birds stop singing in the hood, the toxic gas has already reached the penthouse. By the way, that's a bar. That's all me. Now, this is broken up into a couple parts. The first is around the vessel of the song, from spirituals to the trap. To understand the quarter zip, you have to understand the lineage of the vessel. Hip hop was never just music. It was a world built out of only the American dream available to a people systemically locked out of the primary one. When we watch American Gangster or Snowfall, we aren't just watching crime dramas, we're watching the origin stories of survival under the weight of an empire. In an era where real money was a ghost and getting out felt like a myth, the drug trade and the gang wars were the brutal obstacle of a localized manifest destiny. Hip-hop became the modern slave song, just as the spirituals gave visual and auditory cues, coded maps for physical freedom. Hip-hop proved a visual and sonic cue to the life people lived because they were offered no other way. It was a map of the trenches. However, what we didn't expect was for that map to become a permanent life choice for future generations. We expected the struggle to be a transition, not a destination. And so today we see Black men in positions of unprecedented power and prestige. Jay-Z, Bron, Jordan. These people are billionaires who have successfully empowered their circles into the millionaire class. Yet, how do you make music that speaks to the kids on the corner the way NBA Youngboy does? Kendrick Lamar has done an incredible job creating cues to freedom by advocating for the overcoming of the ego, but his music is a slow burn liberation. It may take generations to truly free the mind of the masses. In the meantime, the youth gravitate towards the raw, unfiltered frequency of the YN lifestyle because it feels more honest to their immediate reality. W.E.B. Du Bois highlighted the talented 10th, the belief that only 10% of the population could truly set the rest free. And in some ways, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule that shows itself constantly across nature, supports this. But in Western culture, when only a few have the ability to go beyond what the collective can visualize, the crabs in a barrel concept takes hold. We typically try to drag the person back into the barrel with us. But I don't think this is a bug in the Black community. I think it's a feature of the American experiment. Western culture lives to glorify the concept of striving and eventually arriving, but the system is designed so that enough is never enough. You see, what we see in the glorification of gang culture is in direct correlation to core U.S. beliefs about life, but it's broken into two sanitized categories. In the United States, we live to have people ready to die for the country. To be a Navy SEAL is to be a savage, to do what is necessary, however brutal, to keep the country safe. We celebrate this ferocity when it is directed outward. But when Muhammad Ali went to jail for refusing to fight in a war he believed was not for black people because we were considered less than at home, it marked a seismic shift. Why fight for a country that doesn't care about you? However, the Western biological need to defend the block remains present in us. Of course, we wanted to protect the street we lived on. Critics call these kids dumb because they don't own the block they are dying for. But does anyone in the military own what they protect? The soldiers who died when the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan, did they own that land? Did they own the resources they spent 20 years guarding? Ownership isn't the point. The point is the primal belief in belonging to something greater than yourself. For many in our culture, the block, the gang, and the family are the only countries that ever gave them a flag to carry. You see, we draw hard lines between Bernie Madoff and Frank Lucas, or BMF and the Italian Mafia, or Franklin Saint and the Sackler family. But what are the real differences? It's simply the aesthetics we assign them based on the culture they belong to. Black culture built an entire world in parallel to the American dream, but we looked at it as if it were a separate alien species of crime. Look at the Forbes under 30. Look at the Forbes 30 under 30 list. How many of those prodigies have been indicted for massive fraud? How many people did Sam Bankman-Fried rob in the name of effective altruism? How many people died because of the pharmaceutical industry's push of Vioxx or Oxycontin? People think black people hurt black people in droves, but they ignore what private equity firms have done to white people in middle America. Consider Prospect Medical Holdings. This for-profit hospital chain, once majority owned by the private equity firm Leonard Green and Partners, loaded its hospital with massive debt while paying shareholders more than $500 million in dividends. While they extracted wealth, the hospitals, the literal lifeblood of communities in places like Pennsylvania and Rhode Island, withered. Look at what happened to Toys R Us. Look at Red Lobster, which was gutted of its real estate assets by private equity and is now, ironically, being saved by a black man. Nothing is sacred in the quest for a rival. Whether it's a set on the corner of a PE firm in Manhattan, the goal is the same. Whether it's a set on the corner or a PE firm in Manhattan, the goal is the same. Extraction and expansion at the cost of the inhabitants. The reason people are so drawn to hip hop and the reason the quarter zip is so resonant is that it says the quiet part out loud. The reason people are so drawn to hip hop and the reason the quarter zip trend is so resonant is that it says the quiet part out loud. How many of us have sat in a corporate office and watched people lie, steal credit, and hurt others for a promotion? How many respectable citizens are getting prescription drugs on the low? In my own college experience, Xanax hit like a brick. Who wasn't drinking a Four Loko with a pill? The white-collar world is fueled by opioids, marijuana, cocaine, and fraud. A significant percentage of the productive population is taking part in some aspect of the very criminality they condemn in the inner cities. NBA YoungBoy, King Von, and so many others are simply saying, this is who I am. When YoungBoy called pharmacies to get prescriptions for lean, he was participating in the same drug-seeking culture that fuels the suburban pharmacy line. He just didn't have a legitimate doctor to sign the paper. When Wiz smokes weed every day while being a great dad and a prolific worker, he is shattering the lie of the lazy addict. Hip-hop culture is really just a culture of not code-switching the lies you live. It is the refusal to pretend that the violence of the street is somehow more evil than the violence of a corporate liquidation. Here's the thing. When you see a YN in a quarter zip, we are seeing the ultimate synthesis. It's a visual cue that the game has been figured out. If the quarter zip is the uniform of the people who can bankrupt the hospital and call it business, then the kid from the block is simply adopting the uniform of the most successful savage he can find. Plato was right. Force never sticks. You can try to force a culture to assimilate, but they will always find a way to play with your symbols until those symbols lose their power. The quarter zip trend is a mirror. It forces the observer to ask, why does it look wrong on him, but right on the guy who just laid off 5,000 people to increase a dividend? If Black America problems are the canary in the coal mine, the quarter zip is the canary's final song. It's a warning that the distinction between the legitimate American dream and the underground hustle has evaporated. We are all in the barrel now. The only difference is what we choose to wear while we're in there. The only difference is what we choose to wear while we're in there. By embracing the quarter zip, the youth are not conforming to the system. They are mocking its costume. They are revealing that the preppy aesthetic of the West has always been the mask of the most effective gangs in history. There is indeed deep truth in jest. And as a reminder, you can read anything that I talk about on the podcast on my Patreon. I'm just grateful for you guys for even taking the time to listen. I really believe that by taking popular culture and putting it in the synthesis, it's just fun for us. All that time they made us try to learn these ideas, but force it down our throats. It wasn't enjoyable. But once I read to try to see the world around me in new ways, everything changed. From Jean Baudrillard, the Guy Debord, rereading 1984. I didn't read a single book the entire time I was in high school and college. I spark noted everything. And I've read almost every book since then just because of how great it is. I've read Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations and realized we don't live in capitalism. We live in a mercantile society. I've read all these Wayne Dyer, Courage to Be Disliked. It's amazing how much of the world around us can be explained in ways other than weird or stupid or dumb when you read the book that gives you a concept on how to think. And now I can have conversations with people because when they describe a world that I'm not really privy to, I might be like, oh, wait, that actually kind of sounds like what I heard with Marcus Aurelius. And, oh, okay, cool. I can kind of see your perspective. And that's what we need, to stop worrying so much about being right and think about what's useful. And I think the future is really us just blending the entire world together. It might move from just being about Black culture to the culture. And I'm hyped for it. I hope that you guys decide to stay here, come back, check out the next podcast. Regardless, I love you unconditionally. And until next time, peace.